I'm Kyle Licott. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. We're extremely excited to have you back here on Taco Tuesday, our second episode of the week. And why is this important? Well, yesterday we had a great conversation talking all about what we do here on every show, and that is different industries and technologies. And yesterday we spoke very specifically about transportation and supply chains, two areas that are very fundamental in our daily lives. And today we're continuing that discussion with gaming, entertainment, and my favorite, esports. What has happened in these worlds? In the last 6 months, we've seen a tremendous amount of activity, whether it be positive or negative. There's been a lot of growth and also a lot of change. However, we're consuming, when it comes to entertainment, more potentially than we ever have. When it comes to gaming, we're seeing new individuals getting into gaming. We're seeing new genres of games. We're seeing new outlets of games as well. And the entire gaming world has shifted faster than we could have imagined. With that being said, esports, the one sport that has consistently stayed on for the entire past 6 months and is continuing to do nothing but thrive, whether that be investment, whether that be viewership, whether that be marketing, something we might get into a little bit later today. Now, what's happening in these industries currently and what's going to happen going forward? Where are the money? Where is the opportunity and where is the capital going? That's what all of our guests are here to talk to you about today, our audience. And first and foremost, thank you, our audience, for joining us today. At any point, if you like what you heard, give us a thumbs up, click subscribe. If you yourself as an investor or an entrepreneur would like to join us on the show, we'd love to have you as an investor come on and share your thoughts and insights on either today's topic or on other topics as we continue out the week and have episodes of VCTV every day on different technologies, industries, and regions around the world. As entrepreneurs, come on, get a chance to pitch us as investors your idea, your company, as we get the chance to hear what you're doing. Now, if you have any questions, audience, drop them in the chat box. We'll do our best to ask them in real time. If not, we're all available on social media 24/7, and we'd be happy to continue the conversation. And as always, a big shout out to Elena and to the entire LA Token team for making VCTV possible. Golf claps all around. VCTV possible for all of you and for all of us in any device and anywhere you may be around the world. And also a big thank you to all of our speakers who have come from around the world today to share this virtual stage and to dive into today's topics. With that, I'm Kyle Licott, your host. Let's get started on today's edition of VCTV. All right, first and foremost, let's welcome back Julio. Julio, welcome to the show. A little introduction, little background on yourself.
Thank you so much, Kyle. Very glad to be here back. I'm Julio Marquez. I'm sitting in New York City, awaiting a storm. There is a lot of activity in gaming and entertainment that we look forward to covering. We are investors in parts of that business, not certainly in everything, but New York Bay Capital, which is my firm, and our associated fund, New York Bay Blue, are active and have been active in gaming since before the E was added to sports. We were early investors in some gaming concepts of Las Vegas that are now, they're now on display on the floors of the casinos, and we have a background particularly in spectator sports, eSports, but spectator-driven sports. Happy to talk about that a little bit later. In any case, there is right now money to be invested, so we look forward to always meeting new entrepreneurs, new ideas in some of these industries.
Wonderful, and you're absolutely right. There's money to be placed, there's money to be had, and there's opportunity throughout the gaming industry. The question is where to start and where is it needed? And so Julio, get ready. We're going to dive into that. Also now, welcome back, Dr. Shakath. Welcome back to the show. I apologize if I mispronounced that, but I will get it right at some point during this show. Trust me, we got an hour. some point I will get it correct. So I apologize, but welcome back to the show. Even though it's a little cold where you are today, hopefully this will warm you up.
Absolutely. The idea that gaming is a $3.7 billion industry in India would warm the heck out of me. With that particular note, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Shrikant Pathasarathi, not a medicine doctor, but more of a PhD. I have closed over $300 million deals till date, signed over 60 plus term sheets. And I have been in the venture capital industry for the past 13 years. I would like to give a legal as well as term sheet perspective today, and we'll look forward to hearing from the other speakers with regard to other markets. But India, that's a place to be. So I'm going to enjoy this.
Absolutely. It's going to be a ton of fun. We might even get into some Animal Crossing, which some have said is the new happy hour. Since the pandemic hit in the early part of the year, everyone switched to Animal Crossing. Still today, I want to make this clear for our audience and our investors. Still today, as of this morning, Nintendo Switch sold out in many outlets around the world. Still. Okay, just a little note as we hit August. These things are still sold out. Now, with that being said, Greg, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have you first time here on VCTV with Elena and I. A little intro and a little background.
Sure. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks, everybody, for having me. My name is Greg Heiss. I'm up in Seattle, Washington, venture capital fund that I run, Counterpoint Ventures. A little background on myself. I started in sports and entertainment way back, and worked on the sponsorship and the finance side of many of the big tours that some of you may recognize from the 90s and early 2000s with Garth Brooks and U2 and Rolling Stones, all those guys. So I cut my teeth in the entertainment world and then started following or chasing technologies, and landed at Amazon up here in Seattle very early, and was fortunate to help launch their music business. And that led me into starting to invest in companies after I left Amazon in the early 2000s. So ended up starting up a venture fund, love the blockchain space, so in emerging tech. So we've invested in 21 companies, I guess, since 2017, mostly follow-on investments happening now, but sort of full circle back to the entertainment and the sports side of thing, which has been my passion and our passion at Counterpoint. We're looking very heavily into the eSports space. We're getting close on one particular side of it. And then in the spectator sports as well, as I think Julio was mentioning. So we are looking at actively pursuing the tokenization of professional sports franchises. And we're pursuing that pretty actively in Europe right now. And that's something that hasn't really been done. And we're excited about that. So happy to jump into that. But as far as the investment environment for us and what we see, yeah, to mimic what some of the guys are saying here, still out there, the money is there. It's just becoming a little bit more difficult during these times to try to figure out exactly how to disperse those funds. But I can promise you and tell you, at least from my perspective, the deals are still there. It's those that are the most creative with what's happening right now that are finding the funds.
Absolutely. And to add on to that, as we've had in many of our conversations here on VCTV, it's not just about now, it's preparing for the future. So companies that are definitely being creative now with what just happened, but making sure that's something that's lasting for the years to come. Just something to remember. Pranav, welcome. Thank you, Greg. I apologize for interrupting. We're definitely going to dive into the tokenization area, because I think that's very big, and our audience is very excited about blockchain and fintech, but nonetheless, we're going to relate it back to gaming today. So we'll come back to you here in just a minute. Pranav, welcome back to the show, my man.
Thank you so much for having me, Kyle. Great to be back. Thank you once again, Elena. And good to see a few familiar faces as well. Yeah.
Go ahead, sir. It's all you. You know how this goes.
Absolutely. So thanks, guys, for having me back. Just a little quick intro about who I am and what I do. I run a small family office based out of Mumbai, India, apart from running an early stage incubator, where the idea is that we go so early in pre-seed in the Indian market as we genuinely believe no other investor really tends to go. I am an accidental investor. I am a lawyer by qualification who found himself somewhere he didn't expect to be. We have certain funds that we're LPs in the Indian ecosystem as well. And the idea being that we've tried to focus on sport over the last 5 years. My first investment was an IoT gaming chessboard, which 21-year-old kids from Bombay had made while trying to make a Braille chessboard. That accidentally landed me in the world of working with early stage founders. And in sport, in gaming, in fact, Kyle, from the last time we spoke, we talk of deals that are flowing in the market. From the last time I was on here, we've actually closed or are close to closing 2 more deals in this particular space of a few companies, like you very rightly mentioned, who've taken the pandemic and perhaps turned their business on its head to try and build for the next maybe 3 to 5 years, if not longer. So that's who I am and a little bit about me, and pleasure being back here today.
Wow. And for our audience, that's, I believe it was only two weeks ago. So in 2 weeks, to Greg's point as well, in 2 weeks, Pranav, for instance, in his group is doing 2 deals. So as Greg said, money is there, just be creative. All right. Now, with that being said, Anoop, welcome to the show as well. A little intro, a little background on yourself.
Hey, thanks, Kyle. And hello to everyone here on the panel and the audience who's watching us. So I represent Orias Venture Partners. We are an early stage venture capital firm. We've been associated with 2 unicorns, one soon to be a unicorn. Not in the gaming space though, so that remains on our radar, Kyle, and that's why we stay invested in this space. We in fact recently made an investment in a real money gaming company called Zoopy. And you know, we felt we were lucky because we were soon followed by 3 other investors raising an $8 million round on it, and the GTV actually blew up 40 times over the last 1 year. So this is a space to be. I'm terribly happy to be on this and taking in all the knowledge and learnings that we can to grow our investments in this space. But we are sector agnostic otherwise, and we invest. Our first check is usually $1 million. We're India focused. So that's a bit about us. Yeah.
Wonderful. And for those that don't know, I mean, we've got a great representation here of India, and there is a ton of activity happening in India, not just generally from an investment standpoint, the amount of billions, big capital B, that's being invested, but overall, there is just so much from technology to industry. So we've got 3 of the best that can share with us their knowledge of what's happening on the ground. So stay tuned. Noble, the gaming master, the one and only.
Master, obviously, there's people better suited than I to be called that on this. But
this is your areas of expertise, my friend. So AR,
please.
VR, everything. We're going into the oasis. Here we go. Noble, give everyone a few things of intro and a little background on yourself.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. You know, my background in entertainment is, you know, I invest in and buy royalties, music royalties along the spectrum. And it's interesting. We represent Dracone Capital Partners. We've teamed up with M Accelerator here in Los Angeles to do a venture fund that we've been really happy with. We're in the middle of raising $40 million for the venture fund. It's fairly sector agnostic. It's whoever is part of the accelerator. But you know, to echo someone else, I said I was accidentally brought back into the industry. I filed a patent on augmented reality gaming, which intersected clothing and AR. And from there, we did 2 successful Kickstarters, and we raised funds for that particular firm. And that's really what sucked me back into the tech space. We did, prior to that, I was in the telecom switch from pagers to digital cell phones back in the 90s, early 2000s, and did very well there. But I really had no anticipation to be back into this space. But the moment we created the game, we started getting traction on Kickstarter, we realized that this is really the area to be for the long term. And we really enjoy interactivity. So being both a capital raiser and owning a venture fund, but also being the head of a tech company, it's been interesting seeing how the industry has evolved in the last 4.5 years. And there's some serious issues to address in the youths who do esports, but at the end of the day, it's not going anywhere. It's bigger, nearly as big, if not bigger, than the Super Bowl. You know, League of Legends reached over 100 million plus viewers and been climbing. So we know that there's something there, but we have to really figure out how to protect everybody along the way.
Absolutely. I mean, eSports is selling out stadiums, arenas around the world as well. So it's not just viewership at home, and it's also selling out seats. Charge $75 a seat, 20,000 people. You got something more than once. All right. With that being said, teasing up a little bit of some of those opportunities. Last but not least, Gary, the grandfather of AI. And yes, I say grandfather because in my opinion, you've created artificial intelligence. And so I'm giving you that title today.
Wow, I mean, it's like that. I'm not worthy. I was the grandmaster, then the grandfather, and then the father. I mean, boy, time moves quickly, doesn't it? When you're having fun. Wow.
It does.
Anyhow, so my name's Gary Fowler, and I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've done 15 companies. The largest company I've been involved with in terms of an exit is Click Software. We brought it over from Israel. I was on the original team. It was sold to Salesforce in August for a little over $1 billion. I love AI. I've written 60 articles over the last year on artificial intelligence. I write in Forbes magazine, et cetera. I am the co-founder of GSD Venture Studios and AI Venture Studios. So we're looking for incredible technologists that want to go global. Doesn't matter where you're from Mumbai, from Moscow, Minsk, Silicon Valley, it doesn't matter. The thing is how to get out to the market. So I'm also an investor. We're building a $100 million diverse fund out of Chicago. I started a $10 million seed fund out of Russia for early stage startups. And I'm also private investor in a syndicate and just looking for good deals to be able to put, as Steve Jobs said, a little dent in the universe.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen who are tuning in today, you have a wonderful quorum of investors today. Think about what they're about to say and make sure to follow up with each and every one of them as they're all looking to talk. All right. We've all said it. We're all open. Social media, we've talked about in previous episodes of VCTV, is an outlet to reach and to talk to investors. You've all just been given the key. Now, with that being said, gentlemen, let's dive in to two of our big questions today before we start getting into really the micro pieces of how all these things are working. First and foremost, Greg kind of kicked us off, and I want to come back to him to start this. What is kind of your view of the state of venture capital? A lot has happened in the past, well, almost 8 months now, as we're here in August. But a lot more is about to happen. We've seen some capital slow down. We've seen some capital speed up. But in your opinions, each of you, I'd love to hear quickly, what is your view of the current state of investments and venture capital overall? And then we'll get into the areas of gaming, et cetera. Go ahead.
Sure. Frankly, I've seen deal flow slow down. Maybe I'm not looking in the right places, but from our investments that we made over the years, and I'm sure the guys on the panel can agree to this, I think we looked at 675 deals to get to the 21 that we invested in. And so, if you think about that over the course of 2.5 years, how many we were looking at every single month, that has gone down dramatically, probably because we are looking more specifically at deals that I don't believe that what we're going through now with Corona is a one-time thing. I think it's probably going to happen again and again in maybe some different form. So our philosophy is, what businesses, you can't bulletproof everything, but which businesses are there out there that we can invest in that are prepared for that? And so that's kind of where we're looking, and perhaps that has shifted things a little bit as far as the deals that are coming through. We still see them out there. I still talk to a lot of the LPs and a lot of the capital partners that we work with. The money is there and it's available. I think the entrepreneurs have to work a little bit harder to make sure that their business plans and their models take into account what's happening today.
Absolutely. And we've talked about that here previously on VCTV too, of just how much longer that process is, right? We have a little bit more time to get a little bit more deep and building those relationships and doing that diligence in ways that may have been streamlined otherwise. And today we're asking a few additional questions. Julio, to you as well, or what is your view? What are you seeing, to further Greg's point, on just the current state of venture capital quickly as well?
I haven't seen a shortage of deals, but I confess I don't see as many deals as Greg, so he might be actually experiencing a little bit of a dearth of new offerings. I've seen great ideas, and I think that in the business we're talking about right now, gaming, etc. I think the funds investing here have been relatively untouched by the virus. You do maybe have to switch your outlook in terms of how you're going to sell your product, but if you have exciting technology, one way or the other, you're going to find a way to monetize it. If you produce good content, and we invest in film too, if you produce good content, you've got the problem of, well, can you now go? Obviously you cannot exhibit it in theaters, right? And we've seen, for example, Mulan, the big film from Disney, it's getting postponed because it was going to have a theatrical release. Okay, so you might have to postpone the theatrical release, but if you still have a great film, there are many other ways to show the film and to make money, whether it's Disney Plus or there are other ways. So I think if you're investing in fundamentally good content or good technology that's geared toward entertainment, what you now just have is a switch of the delivery channel of how you're going to do that, right? If you're in spectator sports, you can still, even though there are going to be no spectators in stadiums, or a lot fewer spectators in stadiums than we're all accustomed to, there's still that television audience that is hungry for new content. And so I just don't think that this industry has been fundamentally affected by the virus. I think that it's, everybody talks about pivot, so I hate to use the word pivot, but there's a need to maybe some adjustments in how you're going to get that revenue. But I still think that entrepreneurs, other people should worry about how you're going to get the revenue. Entrepreneurs should worry about developing truly unique technology, or truly unique experiences, and we'll all figure out a way to monetize them. Just try not to get distracted by the noise of the virus and focus as entrepreneurs in developing some, truly exciting technology. There is money for that. We've got other friends in the industry, and if there are now fewer deals being shown, that's actually good news, because it means that if you've got a good deal, somehow you have less competition, and you should be able to get more hits with the funds you do visit.
I know, and I agree, and I think to add to that, before I get to Gary here too, I mean, from an entertainment perspective, you arguably have more eyeballs on any content that you produce than potentially ever before. I think I get alerted a little too much on how much time I'm spending on a screen. I'm sure everyone else is the same. I mean, think about how many devices we're all constantly using now, and how long we're on for those. There's a huge opportunity for content digestion as well. Now, Gary, I want to come to you. I know you've got a little bit of a short stop today, but we are excited to have you on today's show. And with that, I want to make sure you get a chance. Tell us what you're seeing as well, furthering on just the state of venture capital overall right now.
Well, I mean, the situation is, I think it's an opportunity of a lifetime. Actually, I was talking to Anoop about it a little bit earlier today. And I think that if you're using the medium wisely, we are a digitally transformed society. Look at Netflix. They had forecasted 7.2 million additional subscribers. They have 15.8 as of the beginning of May. I mean, we are in a boom if you use it wisely. So remember, venture capitalists are mandated to deploy funds. So they got another 2 to 3 years to deploy funds. They don't want to have a clawback. So for them, now imagine all the companies that are located in all kinds of areas, whether in Mumbai or Moscow or Minsk or San Francisco, they're located everywhere. Now the situation is, how do I get to them? And it's venues just like this, Kyle, where they can actually, bring them together so they can meet the venture capitalists and actually get that funding that they need. It's not knock on the door again or go to Hobie's in Palo Alto and meet with Tim Draper. It's a little different now. You've got to use the medium wisely. So I think from my own perspective, I think it's a really good opportunity for really smart VCs and really smart startups that know how to be able to get to those venture capitalists. It's a whole lot easier to approach people. I mean, just myself, just in general, I got to Bob Swan, the CEO of Intel. He never would have connected. Guy Kawasaki is going to be, and I know Guy, but he's really busy. He's actually going to do my show in a few weeks. It's just, you can get to people you couldn't get to before, but do it now before everybody else does, right? Soon they're going to figure it out.
Well, that's just like any good game, you figure it out eventually, right? On today's subject. So there's always a cheat code. In some way, shape, or form. Pranav, I want to come to you real quick. I see you laughing at my super cheesy joke. But give me a quick sense of what's happening in India. And then guys, we're going to switch into gaming mode here in just a moment. So I just want to get a quick few perspectives and then we're going into it. So Pranav, give us a quick sense of what's happening in India right now. Where are you seeing the venture capital community really thriving?
I definitely think that the number of deals have, I wouldn't say diluted or gone down, but at the same time, I think we've seen a higher proportion of quality founders, whether that's a consequence of not enough money in the market from a venture side, even though we definitely know for it not to be the case. There are a lot of VCs and new VCs in India over the course of the last 3 years, a lot in their first fund, a lot that have a lot of money to deploy. But I genuinely believe that even though India is such a huge and tremendous market, I don't think there are those many fantastic businesses to actually invest in, or solid founders or opportunities to invest in. And that's where the challenge lies. Like I think the others have mentioned too, it's about who's taking the opportunity at hand and turning the situation on its head. And I think finding those kind of founders, the good capital, I think sort of finds its way to them. Because I don't even think it's about looking in the right places. It's about just looking in places that other people right now aren't. It's about the game, right? There's a lot of people that are figuring out different elements of different games. And in the game of finding the unusual deal, which is perhaps usual 6 months ago, we found and uncovered deals in very unique and places we didn't expect. So I think there's a lot of money. I think, like you mentioned, funds have to deploy their capital. And I think a lot of funds are in India at that stage where they're sort of that double-edged sword, where they have to deploy, but is it necessarily the best deployment?
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's a good point. I mean, with India, the venture capital scene has exploded over the past 5 years. Not talking just 10, but specifically the past 5 and shorter. And now, you get the first few years to kind of figure things out in a new emerging market, but now that's not the case anymore. And I see Shakrath shaking his head as well. You have to deploy those funds. So entrepreneurs listening, investors have to do investments every year. They're mandated to do so. Doesn't matter if the world's ending. And if the world's ending, we all have different problems. But nonetheless, they have to invest. Now, to Greg and others' points, you as the entrepreneur need to be creative. You need to have a product with product market fit and something that people want, whether that is to invest into or they want to buy, being their consumers. All right. We'll come back to that in a bit. All right, guys, let's dive into these topics. Entertainment, gaming, esports. What is happening? What is shifting? What is changing in each and every one of these markets right now? Anoop, I want to come to, we might have lost you there for just a moment, but we'll come with to the doctor first. Dr. Shakrath, let's come to you. And where is the current state of these industries? And feel free to focus on one of them, but what is the current state of esports, gaming, and entertainment? So much has happened in the recent months.
I would like to focus on gaming at the moment because there's so much in gaming that we can just talk hours and hours about it. Just some statistics for the other gentlemen in the panel as well as the viewers. India, I'm just going to take a use case of India and a context of India. We have got 628 million users who are on the gaming industry. Not to mention the smartphones which are being manufactured, especially for games. That is a big industry which is not being counted in this particular number at all. Between 2014 and 2020, and that was up until March, we have had $350 million in investment And by 2024, this number, and we're talking about just 4 years from now, we're talking about $3.7 billion in investment, which is expected in the gaming industry. So India, the other investors, India, if you're looking for deal flow, India is the market that you should be looking at. If you're looking at for investors, India should be the market that you're looking at. Personally speaking, I just wanted to add on to the previous comment that you made, Kyle, and to the other comments which were made by the other esteemed members, was that India, the deal flow is not slowing down. It's just that people with gap capital are just getting protective. They are looking at newer dimensions to probably invest, and one dimension happens to be gaming industry. We've got 400 gaming startups in India, and that's a significantly low number. When you just divide 3.7 billion by 400, we've got phenomenal numbers that we're talking about in India. India is a very young population. 75% of the population is below 45, which means that there's a large market to actually tap into. So this being the statistic, I would be very bullish on the India market, and I would be very bullish on the gaming market as such. And if we can have these numbers just for the gaming, I can only imagine what the eSports and the other industries might be.
I mean, $4 billion, $4 billion in the next 4 years. And I would argue that by the end of this year, that number will grow, because I mean, you bring up one good thing, and I'm coming around to everybody, but I want to touch on something real quick. No one has mentioned this. We've talked about manufacturing, we've talked about consumer devices, we've talked about regions around the world, and we've talked about gaming. No one has yet to mention exactly this statement that you did, and that's that mobile phones are being built for gaming. And that is a very sneaky and very true point that I think many have missed. So great call out. I'll give you the credit for that. Anoop, with that being said, let's continue this conversation. What are you seeing as the current state of things, and where things are happening in these areas that we're talking about, entertainment, esports, and gaming?
So, Carl, we are seeing that India is just about now taking off. So there is a hockey stick, which happens in most businesses, and education and entertainment certainly are taking off. It is no secret there's only one reason for this, which is COVID, and everyone's got limited options, and therefore this is turning out to be a great friend in distress, if I may say, where people can't go out and play in the actual playgrounds, or they can't be playing sports which are involving physical contact. So there is a whole lot of sports taking off this way. On the entertainment side, I think everyone's watched the rise of Netflix in India. It used to be an $8 subscription. I think I was one of the early subscribers, and as a cord cutter, as we are called, right? So we cut the cable off, and the whole family kind of moved online. And it was 1 million subscribers and at the end of maybe 2018. And the number, I'm sure they don't publish it, but it's more than doubled. And just last year, they introduced a $3 plan, which is for mobile users only, which I'm sure led the hockey stick. So there are, in India, at least what we're seeing is that when you've got something like COVID working for you, when you've got the tailwinds, then what you've got to do is make it absolutely social, right? So get talked about. Multiplayer games in the gaming arena are definitely going to do very well, and we're seeing the rise of all of these games. Even global games coming into India. Fortnite has got a big following in India, PUBG, etc. All of these are big games. People are forming their own clans and fan clubs, and they're talking about it socially. In fact, this is the way Gen Z is talking to each other, right? This is the way they hang out. They don't hang out on WhatsApp. WhatsApp is my generation. These guys are hanging out on Fortnite, and they're talking to each other through Fortnite. They're playing a game, they're talking to each other. That's their social thing. The second thing is price. So when you got millions of people ready to take you up, then you got to drop the price and watch that hockey stick curve really blow out of proportion for yourself. So you grab a early market share in a country like ours, and that's a huge first mover advantage when the curve is taking off. We have locally produced OTT platforms which are running at 15 cents a day on subscription. And consumers, I mean, millions of them, 20, 30 million of them are on local vernacular platforms, which are mobile and internet-only entertainment platforms on demand. TV shows and serials and episodes and all forms of entertainment. Dialect-based entertainment is taking off. Amateur artists are taking off. We ourselves in the gaming arena invested in a real money gaming company called Zupi. And I was mentioning it's really taken off, gone 50 times on gross transaction volumes per month. So I think there is no dearth of investments. Investments follow strong ideas which have consumers following them. So I think in this space, we're seeing all bullishness in this sector, at least in this market. So we're seeing a China over here, if I can probably say it. China saw a 42% quarter-on-quarter, year-on-year growth, in the gaming arena. Those numbers are published out, so they're just, went bananas, and we've seen that over here as well.
I mean, I'm feeling it. I kind of want to play some games right now. I'm getting itchy, but nonetheless, we're still talking about this. So Noble, to you, I want to come to you real quick. In terms of what's happening in the gaming space, what are you seeing? What is your kind of current state of everything as an investor?
I concur with what's going on both globally, but also domestically. There's an aggressive push here in the United States. At the end of the day, Tencent has really been very aggressive in both their growth, and then you also look at all the headsets, and you look at all the augmented reality push with Magic Leap. We're at its time where it's not necessarily the hardware that's the issue. When we first started developing augmented reality, we were able to back create on iPhone 5s and 6s. It's really the ability to create content, and those people who are content creators really pop up on our radar very aggressively, because if you can come up with a unique game or gaming strategy, PUBG and Fortnite were unique games of their era, but if you can come up with something unique content wise and play with these platforms and take advantage of the native augmented reality that's built into the cell phones, as well as AR Core and AR Kit, you're going to be able to really push things to the next level. We know that on the horizon, we have people with not only heads-up displays for AR integration, but there's also contact lenses not too far down the road as well. So Steam, so just to piggyback on that too, the idea that the content itself is no longer bought and owned has also been unique and was led the way by Steam, where people are doing subscriptions and receiving their games on a return wheel. So that really opened up a whole new level of creatives and the ability to test out both projects and games. So it's a big industry, and we're enjoying it, and we've been just looking more at the content aspect of it, and those people are creative and coming up with a new gamification of ideas in the AR space, not just the numbers. The numbers are magnanimous, so you have to find your carve out niche in that component.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Julio, I want to come to you next and get your current state of things, and then I want to dive a little bit into spectator sports. You and Greg both mentioned this. I want to open that up for a second, but what is your current state of things from your perspective around entertainment, esports, and gaming?
Well, as I was listening to everybody, I was thinking of one of our clients and investees and people we support. His name is Dibanj. He's a African pop, kind of like an Afro pop artist. He's a musician, singer, etc. He created a platform called Cream. You can find them at creamplatform.com. And Cream attempts throughout Africa to get people to post their content onto a site that can then monetize the content for them, and can also, of course, provide mentorship opportunities, and basically you can be discovered. If you have a talent, you post it, people look at it. He has a board of experts who look at the content across all kinds of platforms. So you can post videos of yourself playing basketball, and if you're a good basketball player, then it becomes evident in the video. And he's actually been able to place a couple of people into the NBA, just who started by posting their content onto the platform. Obviously, music. He has a thing for comedians. People can post themselves doing comedy, etc. The concept is not new, but the idea that this idea that you can't really own the content anymore, but you can still capture it and monetize it in some way by becoming the vehicle through which you can allow someone to achieve their dream, so to speak, is very much alive and well, and it's alive and well throughout the economy and throughout the world. So people with ideas and talent have at their disposal just more and more ways to get that content public, and for that content to reach their intended destination, and for you to in the meantime make some money. And everybody knows that you can post things on Instagram and other places and monetize that following, or monetize the your work. And so I think that's a trend that's just going to continue in ways that we haven't imagined yet, right? But I think it's a good time to be creative, and it's a good time to somehow record your creativity in some way, so that somebody else can then help you do something with it. And the most difficult thing in the creative industry 30 years ago, 20 years ago, was getting that distribution, becoming known, having to knock on that door, sit on that couch, or whatever, analogy you
Being
want to,
discovered.
being discovered.
Yeah.
And, that just opens up a whole other, opportunity for investors, right? Because you can create platforms where you can gather the content and then monetize it to someone else. I think that's just an ongoing trend that we're all trapped in, and entrepreneurs could think about in terms of developing new ways. VR is still around. VR is still under development. Nobody has really created yet the ultimate VR experience that is going to finally bring in the millions and millions of people who are just can't wait to get the new VR software. But a lot of work is being done to make the phone, be the VR vehicle. And I don't know if that's a year away, or 3 years away, or 5 years away, but at some point VR is going to get to the level where everybody's just going to want to have a piece of it, right?
So at some point. Yes. I mean, VR has been teased. I will make the comment, VR has been teased for 20 plus years at this point, and we're still not here. But
still
it is
not
coming.
here,
There are
a lot of work is being done, and a lot of money is being invested, and a lot of smart people are looking into it. And so we cannot forget it. It's there and it exists. You have to pay attention to it.
It's a great opportunity for those that are looking to develop. And Julio, I want to pause just for a second. So I want to continue on, make sure everyone gets a quick thought in here as well. But we're going to come back on that note around VR and some of the other areas that you have. So Greg, I want to come down to you real quick. I mean, again, getting your point and thoughts around the future and current state, I should say, around sports and eSports in particular. I know you're doing a little bit of work, and even in gaming, which Julio, I'm going to come back to you on as well. Where are you seeing kind of happening quickly in this space in terms of just their current state?
Yeah, so it's interesting, and I come from a probably a little bit different background than the gentlemen that are on the call. You guys have a lot more experience in the esports side than I do in the gaming side. I can tell you from traditional funding and traditional LPs and family offices and the big funds that I've talked to, there is, outside of this community, there is a giant group of them that are thinking that the esports market sort of peaked and it's hit its high. And I'm seeing a lot of them pull back and thinking, well, maybe we missed it. And as soon as I start to hear that, and I've been following trends like that for the last 10 years as an investor, that's when I really dive in. So that's when we started to dive in further to see if it has passed or not. A lot of times, as you guys know, these big industrial investors or institutions, if you will, they look at what analysts are saying. If they don't understand it, they pass on, right? And I think a lot of people still don't understand the space. It's interesting to hear all the numbers coming out of India and where the trajectory is going. For us, we're diving in, and we start, as you know, we're in spectator sports, but it's interesting. For example, the NBA pushed us straight over to the NBA 2K, right? And for what they're doing on franchises, and we've gone down that path immensely, and we're pulling in investors that are looking at standing something up in that area. So I'm seeing a bit of a shift, but I think it's just like anything relating to blockchain or emerging technology. You've got to refocus in the audiences, and a lot of people think that something is already dead or past. You've got to bring it back. We saw it with blockchain, right? You saw how complicated blockchain was, and everybody thought it was the greatest thing, and then nothing happened in 2 years, and then everybody said it was a big bust. Well, fact is, it's a little bit harder than anybody thought it was to do. It's still going to be there, and I think the same thing's happening with esports as soon as people start to realize it. From the institutional investor side, obviously there's millions and hundreds of millions of people in the audiences that understand it, but that's I think the biggest challenge, and I'm pulling that together from that side and taking advantage of it, quite frankly.
Absolutely. And Pravant, you're also an investor in sports and sports franchises. Are you seeing a similar trend as well? Are you seeing more opportunity there? Do you see more digitization? What are you seeing kind of in that as well?
So I think from a spectator sport in India, it's a fairly, for lack of a better way of describing it, it's a fairly closed cartel of individuals that obviously run spectator sport in a country like India. We've seen a massive digitalization and commercialization of sport in India over the last 15 years across different sport. Cricket obviously being the North Star that everybody follows in India, where cricket is as well. Cricket and Bollywood are the two little religions in India for the masses, anyways. And in India, when it comes to sort of trying to change the way people have adapted to playing sport, I think the digitization and the fact that we have over 100 million active esports gamers in India today has changed that tremendously. And I'll just give a little context to the two investments that I was speaking of that we made, which are sort of more in this vein. One being a platform which is the only tech platform that in India and in Asia that offers APIs for third-party publishers like Tencent and Garena, which nobody in the ecosystem in India has. As a result of it, they've been actually able to capture a large volume of clientele of the big gaming companies who obviously don't have access to their own tech and perhaps more consumer plays than being deeply focused on building out a platform that can allow for publishing, for gaming, for basically the entire holistic ecosystem. They're growing at an unprecedented pace, and we see them growing tremendously over the course of the next 24 months. And simultaneously is the element of recruitment when it comes to sport and that entire ecosystem. There are not enough good individuals to work in the field of sport in India today. Right, the management professionals just don't exist, and that comes from so the company we invested in was actually an individual who was running India's football league called the Indian Super League, which is a collaboration between IMG and Reliance in India and Star. And it's probably one of the second largest franchise league in the country. And the gentleman actually stepped away from building this over the past 7 years because he realized that the problem of solving for recruitment for this entire category in India just doesn't exist. There's no solution. So he faced that problem when he was trying to hire building leagues, building franchises. And they built, for example, a testing and scoring platform where today you can have a standardized test to help you through the recruitment process in the entire sporting ecosystem. And by default of where he comes from, they already have the opportunity to onboard some of the largest players in the ecosystem, simply because they're building a solution that nobody thought of. So when you look at the market exploding in different ways, are there enough employable people? It's great that a lot of money is going in from VCs into all of these companies, but where is this money being spent, right? Are they hiring people that are good enough to do the job? Are they hiring people that know what they're doing in the first place? So for us, we've taken sort of two different vantage points, because spectator sport for us becomes a little bit more structured, which is it's very difficult to penetrate. You have to sort of jump down a few tiers to get involved. Like we have a second division local team, which we operate in football. And again, just from a point of view of holistic understanding of how we can help the ecosystem develop. But yeah, so there's various different angles, which I think are going to play out differently over the course of the next few months. Yeah.
And this brings up the conversation of opportunity, right? So there's a lot missing as you're bringing out, but that means there's opportunity to start building. So looking at spectator sports to entertainment to gaming to esports, where are these opportunities? And Dr. Shrikant, I want to come to you first. Where are you seeing a few opportunities in these industries that people can start investing and they can start building? They should be mindful of right now.
Well, gaming requires a lot of capital. So, like I said, you're talking about 400 gaming startups in India, which are going to be, like Pranav very rightly mentioned, it is going to be a cartel of sorts. So, I think the capital intensive segment will carry the same vantage points as well as the beacon points, right? Weak points in terms of, how long does it take to actually build a sustainable startup, and what's the cost of running that particular startup in terms of when does it start making money, and so on and so forth. So investors have to be a little careful in terms of what is the time horizon that you're looking at when it comes to gaming startups. We do not hear news as we used to hear that this particular gaming startup has been funded. This is partially because of the fact that there's a very thin line of difference between sports betting and game of skill, which is game of skill is allowed in India, but betting as such, a game of chance, is not allowed. So when you're talking about Rummy, or you're talking about Teen Patti, you're talking about Andar Bahar, which is one of the leading games that are being played by all of rural India with access to internet, apart from the PUBG and the Fortnites of the world. We are talking about a game of skill versus a game of chance. So I think from a legal perspective, from a capital perspective, an investor should be very careful when entering this particular segment. So if you're a startup, if you are a company which is in the gaming segment, you should be providing a horizon in terms of the returns that you promise for an investor, and you're good to go.
So just if I may. Sorry,
Please,
I'm extremely sorry to jump in. Just to add one point to what Shrikant is saying as well. In India, the kind of games that are actually flying off the charts, there's a game called Ludo King, right? Ludo is an old game. It's a dice game, really simple, 2 to 4 players. Pretty much everybody in India plays it growing up, sort of offline on the board. Ludo King has, in the beginning of May 2020, they had 251 million daily active users. Ludo King. Like, that's a game. I mean, there's a very limited amount of skill, but there's a large element of repeatability. And that's what a lot of these players, where they sort of crack their market. Yeah, sorry, I was just adding on to it.
Wow, 250 million. Wow. All right. Well, so Julio, sorry, Anoop, I'm going to come back to you.
That's only like 1% of the population of India, isn't it?
It's a big number. It's a big number. And I mean, Julio, I want to ask you on this as well. I mean, you've made investments not only in spectator sports, but also gaming, and then in Vegas. Where are you seeing some of the opportunities now going forward for those that are looking to invest or start building in the gaming space? Quickly, because I want to make sure we get a chance, and then we got 1 or 2 more questions before we wrap.
Vegas is right now a good question. Many years ago, not that many years ago, maybe 3 years ago, we were involved with Drone Racing League. Drone Racing League, maybe you have or have not heard of it, but they build drones and they have pilots, and then the pilots, raise the drones, and it's a television show. It's filmed in very strange locations, old warehouses, abandoned, they set up tracks in very large indoor spaces. So everything is done for TV because you cannot really have live spectators in a rundown factory. But they've really taken off. They've gone global. They're producing a league, and they have star pilots, and they have a lot of good technology because they have to produce their own drones. Because every pilot has to fly exactly the same drone so that the whole thing is competitive and you can compare, skill. Somewhere in there is an answer to the question of, what is the future going to look like? And it's basically, it's an event, it's a global event, but it's not necessarily connected to any, live spectators being there, and yet you can still make it exciting, because if what you're filming is something inherently exciting, which basically this is, and the drones have lights. I mean, if you haven't watched it, please do so. It's easy to find them. And I think that people need to think about what can we put on television or on people's screens that they're interested in watching, that is not the same old formula, because not only is the same old formula already been done, but it may not be adaptable to something in the future. People have been showing me how you can make a live sports telecast more exciting by, in fact, connecting it to what's going on in sports betting at the same time, and showing things like how odds change, on the screen. If you have like a live feed to Vegas, betting parlors or casinos, you could be showing on the screen how the odds of something happening or not happening are changing real time according to what you're seeing on the screen. So it kind of takes away from having to have the spectators live there to make the telecast more exciting. We've all seen, or we can think about, a football game, but without the audience, it's almost boring to see it. You need to have something else that will provide that kind of live excitement, which isn't being provided by 100,000 people in the stadium. And maybe it's that, maybe it's quicker displays of other information, almost like watching, I don't know, stock market tables, right?
Right.
I'm
Right.
not.
I mean,
Look, I'm not a creative guy. I can write checks, but don't come to me for creative ideas. Right?
It's
But people just have to constantly rethink what it is that they're showing people to remain, exciting.
Absolutely. Well, sports is in general, and entertainment is an ever-growing thing, right? It's fast-paced in most cases, no matter what the sport may be, whether it's dice to, soccer and football, or American football as well. It's all over the place, in basketball in between, or even watching video games, which are even faster. Watch someone play Overwatch. It's crazy fast, but nonetheless, we have to keep up with that viewership and find new ways, as you said, to engage. Anoop, what other opportunities are you seeing out there in the market around gaming, entertainment, and esports? And then we're getting to the lightning round here in just a second before we wrap.
Yeah, sure. I think what we're seeing here is, and I think Pranav pointed out to that, there has been a resurgence of things that were popular, but they were only present in the physical format. And now they're bringing that into the online format. And if there is a social element to it, it is definitely going to take off, right? So social is the cornerstone of what sports was always all about when it was played out in the open. And therefore, it is no different when it is being played in front of a screen. It's just that you're placed miles apart from someone you may or may not know. But that social aspect has to be kept as the cornerstone of anything that is developed inside in the game. And that's why we have these large games which are becoming popular, or the old games are being refashioned in the online domain, and they're becoming popular as well. I mean, Who Wants a Millionaire was copied as a TV show into Indian television. I won't say the local name because many people won't understand it, but it was, we had a local show over here based with celebrity asking general knowledge questions, and the same thing is now coming up in different formats because this is popular. Sports like cricket, which is very popular here. The whole country watches it. So the biggest, gaming company in India came up as a fantasy, version of the same game. So I think there's a lot of entertainment coming our way. Netflix is producing serials, originals, which are made for Indian audiences only. They're realizing that games getting picked up over here. So people are beaming more and more of on-demand entertainment through their phones. Phones is the way to go. Televisions is not a barrier. You don't have to own a television to be able to, see entertainment, and therefore it's becoming more personalized, and it's becoming very bite-sized. I mentioned $3 a subscription only for a mobile Netflix subscription. So I think those are the things that are driving the entire push as well as a pull. So content, as well as the low pricing, social, freemium based. I think these are some of the four kind of axes which are driving everything here, and that's common to all these domains. Yeah.
Absolutely. And guys, we're at the lightning round. We're actually over at time right now, so we're going to go over just a few minutes. So a few quick questions. Actually, let's just get to Greg. I know you have to jump real quick. Where can everyone find you online if you want to give a quick shout out? It's okay if you're fine. If you've got to jump. Okay.
No. Find me on LinkedIn. Find me on all the social channels. It's just GR Heiss is usually what it is. So you can find me there. I'd love to connect with all of you about what we're doing. Thank you so much, guys.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. Again, we are over time, so we'll go through the lightning round. We'll jump right into closing thoughts. We'd love to hear your closing thoughts on what's happening in these spaces, where those opportunities are, and again, where everyone can find you. So quick closing thoughts, as again, we are over time. So Julio, let's start with you. Quick closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you?
New York Bay Capital, it's right there. NYBayCapital.com for short.
Yep.
I don't know where the new trend is, but let us know what your idea is, and we'll either support it or maybe we'll refer you to someone who we think will.
Absolutely wonderful. And Noble, to you, before you get in your closing thoughts, how far off are we from AR, VR being the lifeblood of our games? And then where can everyone find you?
Today, we've been working on a project that right now is intersecting both 2D, AR, and physical objects. And we worked on it for the last 4.5 years with our tech company, Where Play Games. Where you can find me on LinkedIn. You can also find me at Dracone at Twitter. You can just look at my name, Noble Dracone, on LinkedIn and connect with me. I guess my last thoughts is that everyone today kind of finished up with the reason why things are going to change and why VR and AR are really at the cusp. Because we can't meet and we can't be spectators at these events, what's going to happen, and we never touched Animal Crossing, is that people are going to aggregate on VR platforms to interact on these locations. Human beings are social creatures. We need to interact, we need to communicate, we need to talk. And as we move to the second phase of that, 100% VR and AR are going to play a significant component in us being able to see each other without having to deal with touching each other. So physical distancing will drive this trend even more aggressively so that we can have the excitement of spectators again.
Absolutely. And if you don't have your Nintendo Switch, grab them as soon as you can find one, and get some Animal Crossing to hang out with all of us. We'll drop our names to find our islands. But Dr. Shikoff, same to you. Closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you? A lot's happening in India. You've dropped some amazing stats, but what else do you see happening, and just where can everyone find you online?
I would just like to close my thoughts by saying that the world has moved on from a denial, anger to acceptance. So if you're a startup, so should you. So acceptance should be the norm. If you are still in denial and anger, please leave that and move on to an acceptance when it comes to accepting new deals and probably the deal flow. Where can people find me? As usual, they can find me as Dr. Shrikant P. Pathasarathi with a H on it, and send me a connect and I'll respond to it.
I love it. Anoop, to you, closing thoughts, and where can everyone find you?
So I'm going to be found hanging out on LinkedIn and all the other social handles. So that's pretty easy. And I've been on LA Token before, so you know where to find me as well. I think you've tagged me quite a few times, and I simply love being here on the platforms. There's so much of stuff to learn from. Really nothing more to add. I think we've spoken quite a bit, but feel very excited about this space from this side of the world. So yeah.
Wonderful. Pranav,
Yeah.
close us out. Your closing
Fantastic.
thoughts. Where can everyone find you?
All right. Everybody can find me on LinkedIn and Twitter, the usual social handles. Happy to always have a conversation about all things India, all things sport, and fairly easy to reach out to. I'll end by saying just one thing, and I think both Srikanth and Anup would probably agree that this is the golden era of content in India. It's the golden era of gaming in India, and we're only just at the beginning. The ecosystem where anybody's looking to deploy capital, I constantly implore you to look at India as an ecosystem. Not again because there are great volumes of deals that are happening, but because they can be made to happen. There are a lot of new opportunities that are arising, and I think now is the time for people to latch onto it.
Absolutely. And if you're interested, you got 3 of the best to connect with. And if you don't, it's your own loss. So with that being said, gentlemen, all thank you very much. And thank you to those who joined as well and had to drop off a little early. We do greatly appreciate it. To your audience, thank you so much for tuning in. As everyone has said, we're all available on social media 24/7 and would love to hear from you. Here at LA Token, we would love to hear from you on VCTV. Reach out. We'd love to have you on the show, just like our investors today, sharing your thoughts and insights. Entrepreneurs, reach out to Dr. Shakharav's point. Share what you're thinking about, share what you're building, get out there, be creative, leverage these new medias and channels, as Gary mentioned earlier in the show as well, and get creative on reaching out with investors. If you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Again, reach out. We'd love to hear from you what more content we can provide on VCTV to help educate you, thank you, Julio, whether it be on new markets, new trends, new technologies, and regions around the world where all of these things are happening. And a big shout out, not just to our investors who joined us today and everything they shared, but also to Elena and to the entire LA Token team for helping to make VCTV possible everywhere in the world. Thank you, Pranat, Anup, Noble. Thank you guys. And also to you, our audience, for tuning in. We appreciate it. Click subscribe. Again, give us a thumbs up. We'll be back here tomorrow. 2 episodes, double feature, talking about hospitality and travel and some other subjects as well. We'll tease that out. We've got a lot more to come here this week on VCTV. So get ready, strap in, get excited, grab your Animal Crossing, get ready to join us back here all week. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. We'll be back here tomorrow. Thank you, Doctor. And we'll see you tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you, Kyle.